Good evening, welcome to the Special Conservation Commission meeting, September 25th at 6:30. If everybody would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, item number 1 on our agenda is commission member titles, duties, discussion and clarification. So I was not, as the chair, informed of the selectmen's meeting that took place so we could discuss our bylaw changes, so I wasn't present. And I think the confusion is that we're the only board that has chair and co-chair. And I think if we reorganize to have chairman, assistant chair, and clerk, like the rest of them, it would be more clear.
I didn't know that you weren't aware of the procedure, so, and I just figured you knew, so I didn't think it was my job to notify you, and I didn't.
No, it's not your job, it's
No.
our office's job.
Yeah.
Our office should notify the chair of anything that happens, I think.
Yeah,
You know, so I'm not blaming you solely on, but I think that if we have specific titles and specific duties, I think it would just clear everything up for other boards. I know that Jen Hager probably sees chair and co-chair and say, hey, I can go to either one, but,
I think, well, I told her you would chair, and so she just,
Yeah.
sent it out, but I didn't realize that you didn't know, and you didn't know the procedure, so.
Yeah, I know the procedure of it. I wasn't notified of the meeting, and I can't watch every agenda that comes out. You know what I mean?
of other boards.
Of
you
other
mean.
boards. Ours I try to keep an eye on, but of other boards,
So how do they, what does Jim recommend for, titles, or?
Chairman, assistant chair.
A vice
and-
chair,
Or
is it?
vice chair and clerk.
Vice chair.
Which is pretty typical for any board.
Yeah. I think so.
What's clerk do?
It's like a secretary,
Yeah,
in most boards, there is like a Wanda that takes minutes, but, a lot of times the clerk is responsible for signing off on certain things for the board. So, it's a standard
Kinda
position.
Where they work all right.
Mhm.
So a clerk's position would help organize us, I think.
I think it would keep us.
It would be one more person.
I think that maybe
make
needs a
sure
little
that-
more discussion, so we, instead
Yeah.
of voting on it tonight, but we can do the chair and the vice chair if you want, but,
Well, no, let's have a little discussion. It shouldn't be too
Yeah, I mean,
complicated, right?
so I've been on plenty of boards, and almost every board has a president, a vice president, a chair, a vice chair, assistant chair, whatever you wanna call it, to, be there for if the president or chair is unavailable to run the meeting. They all generally have a treasurer and they have a clerk, and not that they have specific duties, but it's just typical for any board to have those positions.
well, we wouldn't have a treasurer because.
No, we don't,
no.
we don't need a treasurer, it's a town board.
So would the clerk take minutes?
No, that's still Wanda's job, but the clerk can be responsible for reviewing Wanda's minutes and approving Wanda's minutes.
Okay, that's what I do now.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
generally what a clerk or secretary.
That's what I do
clerk or
now, and I
secretary.
would certainly like to get rid of it.
Yeah, so
I don't know
that's
if you would qualify to be a
that's
clerk, but.
generally what that position does is they have to sign off. Usually the chair and the clerk sign off on
Well,
the
we vote as a
minutes.
board, and.
Well, and the board does have to vote
Yes,
as a whole, but
yes.
generally before the minutes go to the board as a
Yep.
whole, the clerk and the chair should sign off on them.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing for,
Forever, probably, right?
I just
Forever.
think even if it's an empty title and it gets zero if it gets zero assignments, if the chairman can't be there, then the duty could go, the vice chair could fill in for the chair, and the clerk could be the vice chairman for the event.
Bump up.
Yeah.
I think we need, I always wonder when I got on the board how it all worked. Like, how does it all work?
I-
We start at the beginning.
I have some information that I'd like to read too,
Go ahead.
to explain how it all works, but let's do this first with you want me to make a motion that we reorganize to chair, vice chair, and clerk?
Not yet,
Not
I'll have
yet.
a little discussion.
Yeah,
No?
we
Okay.
wanna still talk about it.
So there's motions that always have to be made and tracked and how they were said. There's timelines. I have people call and ask about when my order of conditions is gonna be done so that they can start their project and file. I think we rely on Brandon for all that, but it's hard to ever give answers on any of those things. What I'm being told is lately it seems like it's the full 21 days before they get their order of conditions. Could a clerk help with tracking different things that go on at the meeting to make sure that there's follow through? Because I think everybody tries their hardest, but as you get busy and you're not organized, things just, you put almost the same amount of energy and accomplish nothing. So the clerk, I think, would be a good position of just helping. It's one more person that either oversees or just does some organizing of things that go on in the board. I think there had to be some process where everything should go through the chair, whoever that is. And if that's Wanda and a clerk, and they make sure between the two of them, that the chair is notified of everything, I mean, that is a hole in the process for something as important as either a selectmen's meeting or a finance committee meeting, or somewhere where conservation had to stand up in the role of representing all of us. So if a clerk as volunteers, not to take on any more work, because we already do quite a bit, just having to attend the meetings twice a month and just understand what's going on. So I guess you just start out sometimes with a position that does nothing.
Right.
And see what that person can do with the position. I can't tell you how many times when it comes to the office work, because I'm not a pro at it, I'll put somebody in the position and say, create a job. There's a job here, I'm telling you, there's a job for you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, well, what do you want me to do? I want you to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not literally. So this is a case where the job didn't exist, we need to create a job. And sometimes you start just by creating a position and see what that position takes. Because first of all, it's a commitment just to, who, does anybody wanna be, I mean, you say you're doing it now, did you wanna continue to do it?
I can, but, you know, if someone wants to take over doing the minutes, that's fine too, because
Wanda should, no, I don't think that we
Reviewing
should
the
take.
minutes. She means reviewing the minutes.
Yeah,
Reviewing it,
reviewing
yeah.
minutes and just helping to make sure that it just runs maybe smoother, or
I
little
think if
things
we
that-
have a title like this, our very next meeting, we'll say, you know what, the clerk can do that. I think that's
Like I
where it's
said,
gonna fall
sometimes
out.
let's not put too much talk into what the job would be, we're all volunteers, let's
Right.
create the job and the position and see what we can do with it. Let's, instead of trying to create the wheel before the wheel, I bet all of a sudden we could say, well, the clerk can take care of that.
Well, there are
follow up,
certain
or-
things, like you had mentioned the order taking up to 21 days. I think Brandon's doing, in some cases, more stuff, maybe some more admin stuff that could be done internally here through the town.
Wanda doesn't do the order of conditions.
No, Brandon does them.
Yes.
But I know certain things, like Brandon's been drafting letters where certain things Wanda should be doing, and I think Brandon's just been doing it. in some-
She does some, you know, she will usually send it out, and if there's a letter going out,
Get
and
approved or something.
so she'd probably be sending them to you now, but she was sending them to me last year to see if it had the information on it, so that can go to the chair. But some of the letters, you know, he
certain
has to
wording
do the
has to
order
be
of
correct,
conditions
yeah.
and so forth.
Yes.
I have brought, some information that is in different areas that I think we've never had the opportunity to explain, and I think some of this may, answer questions that you have. But let's do this thing first.
So, I mean, I'm only an associate, so I can't take on a title, but I do this for a living. I'm an executive
You
assistant.
sure about that?
Yeah, I'm not a full board
I
member.
should have asked that question
Full
then.
commission member, so I can't,
Okay.
I can't have a title, cause that implies that you're.
I got you.
Yeah. So I would,
Well,
I will continue to do to review the minutes and everything until,
Could Nicole
Maybe
help in the
till Nicole-
process so if she's an assistant to our board, could she just
Well, I think
unofficially officially assume the
Joyce,
role of,
I'd be happy to take it over and then run
When
it through
you're-
you, and then you send it on to Andy or whatever, I just copy you and Andy on
Well,
it together.
what usually happens is Wanda sends them to me, I check for clarity and accuracy and spelling, and I make some changes, and I send it back to her, and she sends it out to everybody.
So you're saying you wanna do that, and then it'll go back to,
I do this for a living.
okay, so then.
so why don't you be just
I've
CC
taken
Nicole on the
minutes
emails?
forever.
Okay, but I still think it's a good idea for us to have
There should
Nicole
be,
definitely can't have the title.
clerk
I
title.
can't have the title, but
So,
this year,
So assistant chair, if we're restructuring, doesn't really do anything unless you're not here. So it doesn't really have a role. The clerk will probably have more of a role.
from what I've read, it's at the direction of the chair. The assistant chair works at the direction of the chairman, or in the absence of a chairman.
and the clerk isn't, it's more of an admin role.
Right.
It
Well-
sounds like the clerk is more of the job.
Right.
The secretary is the job, I mean, that's the
Well, right now, I
truth.
think we just need some help with that.
Right.
Let's just say it that way.
Right.
Well, I made a list of things that I have been doing over the years that I've assumed, so if you want me to enumerate this
I
list,
would love to, I mean, I know you put
Okay.
a lot into this.
Can we just pause for 1 second?
Yes.
I know, cause I know we got a couple people from the Manchester Pond Foundation. I don't wanna jump ahead, but I don't want them to have to sit here all night.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
probably don't wanna listen to our jib.
So I don't wanna jump ahead through the chair, but I don't know if you have anything we need to.
Yeah, so I'm gonna spearhead this, and I'll say it blatantly. I had asked our secretary on Monday, August 12th, I'll leave the name out, can you please add bylaw and bylaw fee review to the next available time on the agenda for the 21st? She got back to me, sure. It went back and forth a couple of times. I don't have a problem, I haven't posted the agenda yet, yada, yada, yada. And then at one point in these emails, I said, ask for policy review too, because we had some policies that were, I hate blindsiding people when they come in here and say, we have this unwritten policy, you can't do that. I don't feel as though that's right. So that was the reasoning behind that. So we get a copy of the agenda for every meeting from Wanda. It gets emailed to us. I have a copy of it. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of it. It's on my phone, but it had all the timed, it had all the timed articles, and then on the second page was board business reviews, policy. It never got published for the public. And I have looked back, and it's been an ongoing problem for years. That second page hasn't been published for 10 years.
So what we get is different than
So what we get
Junk
is
public
different from the, so basically, we're gonna take back that article number 10, because I don't think it's fair that the lake associations weren't at least notified with that. I did send emails out in the springtime regarding it. I got some feedback from some of it, but that was, 6 months ago. So we're pulling that out of the town meeting for that reason. Yeah. We're gonna have two hearings. I'm gonna schedule one just after this fall town meeting for everybody to come in and discuss the AURA change. And then we're gonna have one closer to Springtown meeting, so if you wanna, you could say whatever you want now, but if you wanna wait until then,
No, we can wait.
Okay.
Yeah, that way it'll give me time to confer with the whole board anyway.
yeah, so just to get it, on the record, this was an inter-office error, big time. And it wasn't,
Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate the work you guys do, so.
Well, we appreciate that.
Wanna be in partnership with you.
Okay.
with This stuff and going forward. so
Great.
As much as possible.
thank you.
No problem.
I have that email is here, so I did find it, so ours gets a second page, so.
Yeah.
And we have a history of working with both town conservation
Mhm.
commissions, helping to educate the people around the lake and the user community, so we want to continue that.
Okay, perfect.
You're welcome to stay here all night.
Yeah, you can listen to
Well,
us.
I gotta go to work, so I can't be here much longer. I gotta go work for a living.
Good discussion, though, what you're talking about. Okay.
All right,
Have a great night,
Have a
take
good
care.
night.
Thank you.
I don't know what you mean about the second page.
So,
Board business?
yeah, and then under board business, it said, policy, it said review, and that was supposed to be publicly advertised.
So I know she doesn't post the board business on the thing outside.
I think that legally, everything that we talk about and that's scheduled has to be.
That's what we believe is what we were
And that's what
informed.
Jim told you, right?
Right.
Okay, so on board business, she usually puts,
Yep.
things that we discuss, but,
Everything we do here is public record, and my big thing is transparency, and I don't know why we wouldn't. There's nothing to hold, it's not like, if we were having a personnel issue, or we were gonna talk about a town employee, we'd go into executive session. So I don't know why it wouldn't be.
And I think we all, or I at least assumed that it was to the public.
I always assumed that I never would cross-check that with anything. I would have no reason to look at the town
Website versus what you're.
versus what I'm getting. And years ago, when I went through filing, I would check the town to see if I was,
On there.
on there, and I'm sure I was under board business, but it was never, because I would have liked to come in and discuss my progress, rather than the board discussing it without me present.
And we do have a lot of people that you question why they're not here.
Right, so I think we have some office issues that need addressing, but anyway. So go ahead, Joyce, with what,
okay, this is what I have been doing over the years, and, I have wanted to organize things so that things go a little more, smoothly. And so I hope I have done some of that in the past, and, I was considering doing something, to fix the website too. But let me just read what I have written, because I can get nervous and get tongue-tied, and so I wrote everything out. Duties I've been doing that you may not know about. So Wanda sends me her copy of the minutes on the required format, and I review them for accuracy, clarity, and spelling. I send back a revised copy, and she sends it out to the board for their approval. Second thing I do is, prior to me being on the board, conservation members took turns attending Waters Farm monthly meetings, as the Concom is in charge of Waters Farm for the town. Waters Farm Incorporated has a 99-year lease from the town from 2006. So since I was going to the meetings anyway, people stopped going to the meetings as a representative because I was there. So if I'm not on the board, then people will have to take turns going to the meetings. The third thing, when the wetlands protection account went into the red, I investigated and found the municipal fees were not collected for 3 years. As you know, the fees were omitted from the rules and regs, and we approved fees and inserted them into the rules and regs and began collecting them on March 21st, 2019. I also found out that there is a conservation fund which is labeled a trust, which was a surprise to all of us, and there's money in that account. We should consider asking for some money allocated in the budget to add to this fund, because I had sent out a thing in the spring where it had only been used for, money had only gone in for 3 years back in the 80s. So this is accumulated with interest and everything.
would that have to go through town meeting to ask that?
No.
Okay.
Oh, well, to ask that, yeah.
Okay.
To ask Jim to put it in the
Yeah,
budget,
yeah.
to contribute it, to it. We did not pass the Community Preservation Act, which was put up for election quite a few years ago. And so towns that have that, the money goes in to buy conservation land. So we don't have that. Our only source would be this conservation fund. I developed a permit primer with instructions about registering the order of conditions, erosion controls, pre-construction meetings, certificates of compliance, and so forth, which was passed by unanimous vote April 5th, 2017. So here's a copy of it. I think I only did three copies.
Yeah, I have that. I have a
So,
copy of it. Have you
okay.
seen this, Mike?
So
I'm sure
this
you
is the
have it
permit
filed.
primer that Wanda includes with every order of conditions.
Mhm.
So it gives instructions on exactly what to do, when to do, and how to file for a certificate of compliance. And then if there is any money left in the account from the one for the conservation agent, then it gets refunded. So the consultant fee gets refunded if anyone has money left. But you have to file for a certificate of compliance first. I also did this wetlands guide that is on the website that would allow people to look at this and have a checklist and see if you answer yes to any of the following questions, it is likely that you need a permit. So this is something that goes through the laws a little bit, work or activities that would require a permit, and then something to check off to see if you have wetlands on your property. So this is on the website. And so I don't know how many people were aware of that, but that's on the website. I talked to Wanda last week about revising the information on the website to update it. So she printed off a hard copy of everything, and I've started to go through it. It's 15 pages on the website. There's a whole lot that can be taken out, and I was gonna work with her when we have the time, and then give copies to everybody for approval before it gets done and changed on the website. So I don't know if that's something that you can give me an okay to go ahead and do, or what. And I typically spend 2 or 3 days a week sometimes doing inspections and so forth. And yesterday I was out for the oil spill 2.5 hours. And I don't usually collect money, and that's my fault. I don't get reimbursed because you do the paperwork and then you pass it in, and I didn't have a credit card bill for the webinars I signed you two up on, so I ended up paying $100 for it and not getting reimbursed, so, but that's my fault for not doing the paperwork. So that's what I've been doing over the past few years. I did bring some other information here. This is how here's a copy of what Wanda does at the meetings, here's the agenda. And so she puts down times, as you can see here on the left. So when something comes up on the agenda, the time is written in there. So what happens is when it's an RDA or an NOI, the times go to Brandon and he bills from those times. So that money is coming out of the consultant fees. For anything other than that, like board business or anything like that, the money to pay Brandon comes out of the municipal or the wetlands account. So anytime that one of the things that we should be mindful of is to make sure that there is not a lot of extra discussion, because we're costing applicants money. So we should stick to the agenda and the topic instead of going off on tangents, because it costs people money and it costs us money if it's coming out of the WPA and the municipal filing fees. So those are the things that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. Also, I've had some concern about closing the public hearings too early. Like the one on Jones Road where it was appealed, we closed it and then the information couldn't come in about the growing season. So because we closed the public hearing too early, before the growing season, that information couldn't come in, and that's why that went to an appeal.
If we want to talk about, I'd like to stick to our agenda.
Well, that's all I have to say anyway.
Okay. Okay. So, getting back to item number 1 on our agenda, which is commission member titles, duties, discussion, and clarification. Does anybody have anything else to add to it? Or do you think that chair, vice chair, and clerk will work in that capacity?
I think it's the wisest move.
I would like to nominate Nicole as clerk, but it does not sound, and she would probably know better than anyone that we can.
I know.
She
Yeah,
can't,
yeah.
okay.
Well, we started some discussion. What if you're vice chair and you're clerk with Nicole and you're the chair? Does that
Well,
help out with everybody's duties?
Or we could do this.
Sure.
Just have chair, vice chair, and then next, you know, when someone else leaves, she can come in as clerk.
Well, we'd have to talk about it again. I don't think there's any reason not to have,
Like Mike said earlier,
The
you can
title.
appoint somebody to the title that it's
Right.
empty for at least this year while
right.
you guys are
And
discussing
Nicole can assume the
this.
duties just
She's
out
here
of
to
I
help,
can-
you
goodwill,
know,
right.
yeah.
I'm
Right.
here anyways, I
Right.
don't,
Yeah,
I
and
don't
you
need
take
the,
minutes anyway.
I
Right.
don't need the title to do the,
Right.
to help Wanda and do the job, so, I mean, I'm more than happy to, and I told Joyce this before, I'm more than happy to take over reviewing the minutes.
All right,
That
so,
would be-
Joyce,
that
and
would
you
be
can
fine.
show her the way.
so why don't
Of
we,
all this stuff you're doing, take the help.
why don't we
right?
vote, why don't we vote on number one and then we'll talk about the title, who we're gonna
Who
assign
we're gonna
it to.
vote is, oh,
Yeah,
so we have to vote on that?
yeah, it's just an agenda item, so I think to make it clean, we'll vote either against or in favor of having the three titles.
I'd like to make a
I
motion.
think I did make the
Oh.
motion before, but
Did you?
Go ahead.
Did
Yes,
you?
I did.
Choice.
Hmm?
Go ahead, make the motion.
I did
Oh,
before.
for the discussion, so I will second Joyce's motion that,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, so that's 5-0 with Nicole. Alright, and then number two is on the same lines, it's just reorganization with, it's gonna be the new titles. I put new or old titles in case we voted against number one. So, does anybody want my job?
You're just getting going, you can't stop yet.
That's why I'm vice chair, co-chair, vice chair, whatever, because nobody else wanted the job.
So, who wants to make a
I'll
mo-
nominate Andy DeWolf for chairman.
well, you don't have to know,
Well, you
he
don't have
already
to,
is.
he already
Yeah.
is.
Oh, when,
Yeah, that's the only title that's staying the same.
Well, that's a question, is it gonna be co-chair or vice chair?
Vice
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 chair.
chair,
That's more of the appropriate, right?
yes.
I would think either vice or assistant chair is more
Yeah.
appropriate than
I
co-chair.
think they're the same.
I think it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Well, it's all
I would
semantics
go with-
anyway.
I would go with vice,
Vice
just
chair,
for
okay.
clarification,
makes
cause
it-
assistant sounds more
All right,
like.
so
Yes.
why don't we take a motion,
All the boards of vice.
Okay.
so, yeah.
why don't we take a motion for the three names from somebody?
I'll make a motion that the three names are gonna be chairman, vice chair.
Or
and
who's gonna be chairman?
Oh,
We need
Well,
those three
we
names.
already are, I mean,
Well, yeah, but it says reorganized, so let's
Yeah.
just get it out there.
okay,
So somebody make a motion with three individual names to the titles.
I make a motion to appoint Andy DeWolf as chair, Bill Wentz as vice chair, and Joyce Adamata, or Smith?
no, Smith,
Smith, sorry,
for the last 21 years.
can't see it, sorry.
isn't that long?
As clerk.
As clerk,
So with,
to work with Nicole.
Okay.
Alright.
Now, wait a minute, I'm clerk,
Yes. Which is all the roles that you just pretty much said that you do now. So you oversee everything that goes on at the office, you see it first, you will get to delegate what goes to the chair, which should be everything.
okay, so, all right, whatever.
That was the way nothing really changed, and then
Nicole.
we're not having a co-chair anymore, we're just gonna have a vice chair. That really only, will you delegate to if you,
Yeah, I mean, we could have
Can't-
discussion on it. I'm not a power freak. If somebody wants to be chair, they can do it.
Doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter
either
to
way.
me.
Well, you didn't want it before, but,
I just don't have the time.
Right, I get it.
and that's what you had said before, but,
And you do, Andy, you're not. So I made a motion.
so would I still be going out and
Sure, you can do the inspection.
inspections and stuff?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay. All
Well,
right,
the
'cause
chair delegates that, so he'll,
yeah,
I don't
Right,
think anybody's
and I-
stopping you
and I-
and wanting
I
you to
think-
not go out, and I don't think
Well, let's
that's
close
a-
this out and then we'll have a little more talk on it. So if that's okay with everybody, we'll take a second. If not, let's keep talking.
Now, I have a funny question. Can I second that where I just got nominated to?
I second that motion to appoint Andy DeWolf as chairman, Bill Wentz as vice chair, Joyce as clerk, Joyce Smith as clerk, with me to work with her.
Being nobody in the audience, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is that
Okay.
5-0?
yep,
Just a point of reference, when you're doing the notes, right, 8 minutes?
Yeah, since
We
she.
wanted, so we wanted.
Yeah, and
point
I
on
had,
that just was absent, so he couldn't vote. He didn't.
Yeah,
you know.
I have
I had
noted
been in
who's
contact
here.
with Wanda, she was gonna review the tape tomorrow
Gonna watch
and 2 minutes.
And there is a format that you have to use for the minutes.
Number 3, I think we should forego at this point until we have further discussion, which is individually prepare statement for FinCom and Selectmen. I think that, the way that this whole thing was presented before we found out about the, advertising error, was not proper, and I think we can do better in the future with it. That's just my opinion, but regardless, I think that we can forego number 3 for now, and I'd like to have a set time, probably maybe sometime in November or December, and we'll call the lake associations in, and anybody else that maybe, if there's any big communities and riverfront areas, and we can all talk about it, you know, in that way it's completely transparent.
And have plenty of time before the spring meeting.
Right, and we can
I
get
agree.
questions out there, and you know, and the more you talk about things like we found in the meetings over the last year, I think the better they work out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we've done some thinking outside the box, I think, with some of these projects, and it's worked out well for us and the people building or doing construction in town.
Do we need a motion to not individually prepare statements for FinCom and Selectmen, since you,
I don't know,
We probably need a motion if you're gonna withdraw that from the warrant.
oh yeah, that would be a good idea. Why don't we, do we need a motion to close this, not get into number 3?
oh, you know, why don't we do that? I make a motion that we're not gonna, open or discuss individually preparing statements for FinCom or Selectmen
I'll second it.
On
All the-
Article 10.
on Article 10. Yes, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Board business, in discussion, I just wanted to go over, that number 9, which was Joyce and Jen Hager's cleaning up of the financials, was good. I talked to Jim this morning, he was okay with that, because we can adjust those those don't need to go to town meeting. And they don't really need to be advertised, so he was happy with that. And Article 11 actually had some, bits and pieces of that built into it.
That was the chart that they have.
Right.
So that was not our
Right.
sponsored article, that's the chart. And so the uses in that chart are the same that we are now gonna have in the 12-6,
Right,
which aligns with all the state.
okay.
And they had left one word out in the second thing. So as I stated at the selectmen's meeting, that there's 2 areas on that chart that are for Conservation Commission. The first one refers to the Wetlands Protection Act, and the bottom one refers to the municipal filing fees.
Mhm.
So they appear to be exactly the same, but the source of the money is different for those 2.
Okay.
So, question on the board business. So how do we start the process of having discussions of making sure that everybody's perception of the bylaws and the state laws and the regulations and what our true duties are and what we're supposed to be enforcing and what we're not supposed to be enforcing and to start to have clarity, which the discussion I'm asking to have is also leading to, if we're gonna have bylaw changes, it starts with understanding that book that's sitting on the table.
Mhm.
There's a lot to discuss and absorb and understand, so I'm just curious, and I think sooner than later, cause spring meeting comes and you had
Right.
mentioned 2, it could be 3 or 4 depending on how many people show up in the
Mhm.
audience.
I said I'd like
We
to have
had
at
2
least
people here tonight that just was asking to be part of it and be educated and work together, and that's, to me, outstanding. Like that's all anybody wants, is to come up with good rules, good regulations that we can all enforce, that we can all, just work together with the community to keep the town great. Cause that is everybody's goal that's sitting here, or we wouldn't be here.
Right,
So,
Right.
what is the process to have those discussions? Cause we don't seem to get them right.
The ticklish thing that people don't understand about conservation is basically, when we are having our regular meetings, we are enforcing the Wetlands Protection Act. And so in that respect, we are acting as the local division of the DEP. So that's where the Wetlands Protection Act and the municipal filing fees come from that, state,
But we also
But as a, sorry,
administer our bylaw.
but we,
but as a group, how we administer it to be consistent, so that what you see and what I see and we both see the same thing.
Right.
There's never any discussion about all that information that's in that book that we're supposed to be enforcing as a group.
Mhm.
And that needs to happen if I'm gonna stay on this board, because I find it frustrating that I don't think we're all on the same pages. Not one of the five that sit here. And I think it's just to sit down together to talk through some of these things in here and everybody understand it in the same way. And that only comes with discussion, because.
and we can't really do discussion at our regular meetings, we would have to have a
So,
special meeting
what I
like this.
asked was, what's that process, and before town meeting, if we're gonna get ourselves in a position where we're making changes to the bylaw, it should come with great discussion. I think that night, maybe we didn't have enough discussion, maybe there wasn't enough public involvement.
Why don't we have a couple of workshops?
Workshops,
Remember we
that's the
did the
way
workshop in the spring?
that's what I'm asking, it doesn't have to be to vote, it's,
Right.
it's a way that the public and the board, and we can all read through this book together and all understand it together and enforce it together.
Mhm.
Instead of,
What book are you talking about, the bylaws?
Yeah, this is,
it goes
this is
together,
Wanda's
so
book.
when I say a book,
This is-
it's just, there's two things that this board has to work under, the state
Yeah.
regulations and the Sutton
This is
town
the new
bylaws.
Sutton Town bylaw, and this back section
And
is
they
all the
go
state
hand in
bylaws,
hand.
the state laws.
So we have to obviously advertise it,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we could have a workshop or two on a Wednesday,
and I'd be all
off
for
Wednesday,
that,
or you know.
We've
or-
done that in the past.
Right.
when we have time like
But
this.
not with any of the.
When we have time like this, right. We can't do it well, you know, the winter, the filings slow down, so maybe we could do it at a regular meeting.
You might
Just
be able to.
cap the
You can
convers-
always have it at the end, and if we have time,
If we
we
have
wanna
time.
put 10 minutes into it, so it's not overwhelming.
That's not a bad
That's
idea.
what I was getting at,
Maybe
instead
a-
of 2 meetings, this may be a whole bunch of small,
Yeah.
talk about it,
Well,
understand it.
about our
I've
stuff, yeah,
spent,
right.
myself personally, I have at least 15 to 16 hours just reading through this
Mhm.
and asking questions and and then reading it again,
Mhm.
cause it's complicated, and it goes back and forth into different jurisdictions and different parts,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the bylaw stuff isn't covered, then it's the state regulations that we're enforcing.
Mhm.
I just think it would do everybody in this board to understand it together. And that's just, it could be at the end of a meeting for 5 minutes, pick a topic and talk about it a little bit.
On the same token, I've been sifting through different towns' bylaws, and you should see how some of them are written. It's rough. So we could even, you know, find something in there that needs to be cleaned up. And
That's kind of why we did the 2015 one,
Yep.
but this 12.6 was a mess, and so, yeah, we
we can all,
clean it up.
yeah, we can all definitely,
Doesn't hurt to do it periodically.
no, and
Right.
like my whole thing about being chair is I want this board to be transparent, but also we have to stay progressive. We have to stay with the times, we have to, you know, we have to be concerned about the future of the town of Sutton, but we also have to be mindful of the people who are filing and the cost of it and working with people. It's not just
And what we accomplish.
Right.
And protecting, the
protecting.
state regulations spell out exactly what the mission
Right.
is.
Right. So,
That's our function here, is to protect the town.
yeah, but as a board, so a board's job is to be the variance or the gray area of a black and white law. So we have to be mindful of the inhabitants of the town of Sutton. It's not always, when people are coming before us with a filing, they're asking for relief from some bylaw or state law, and that's what our function is. Our function's not to take it and say, nope, that's the law, we can't do it. I mean, that's,
Well, it is if that's the law, yeah, you have to enforce the law. Yeah.
but, anyway,
I'd like to think we enforce the will of the people of the town.
right.
Because everything that's not a state regulation that we enforce that's a bylaw had to go through town meeting.
Right.
And all that I'm asking for is some kind of discussion that makes a lot of the town aware of exactly what's going on, exactly what the rules and regulations are, so we all understand them as a group.
Right.
And that will take meetings and time, and hopefully we'll get some turnout, and if we don't, and there's no interest,
Mhm.
and these are the rules, and everybody wants to live on them, then we enforce them. But some of the issues are, I don't see them being enforced consistently. I see a lot of inconsistency of people wanting to enforce those rules and regulations. And alls I can say is either once we know them, and I've been on this board, just like I've been doing since I've been here, we're gonna enforce them. And consistently, and not on some and not on others. So I think that's why we need to have discussion about these rules, cause I think they're pretty excessive, and they're very harsh, and they're very strict. And it might not be a bad thing, but it needs discussion. Cause there's always different ways to accomplish the same thing,
So a suggestion.
which is to
would be,
protect the wetlands.
if we're gonna do it,
No.
cause it could become lengthy, either like Andy said, one of the or a slow meeting, we had one recently where it was only.
Yeah, it was only two.
Sooner than later is all I asked.
Yeah.
I
Meaning just
agree.
because spring will be here before we know.
Well, you know, after, why don't we wait, until after the 21st, which is the town meeting, and then we'll start putting it on the, end of the agenda, which will be publicized, the whole thing.
And then if we have time, we can discuss it, and if we don't,
Well,
we'll
the
adjourn
only
and go
question I
home.
have, if we don't have time, do you think we'll get any, where people would come in?
Yeah, I got you.
We'll see, cause it's
Yes,
at
yes.
the end of the meeting.
Yeah, right.
That's
'cause
tough.
People don't, that is tough.
Yes, so a
That's a good
special,
point.
a special meeting where you, where
Might
you
be
put
better.
Just
topics
throw
would be
this out.
better.
I think that just us as a board to get and understand it as a group would be a good milestone to accomplish. And
Okay.
so if we did start with the end of meetings, even if we didn't get a lot of response, it is on television, we could learn to all understand it together. And then by the time we have people from the public and we do a special meeting, we would be more apt to be able to educate them better as we all understand it.
Mhm.
Cause that's what this will be about, is to educate
Yeah,
what the rules and regulations are and how they work.
Right,
that's not a bad idea, actually,
and then we can present it better when we're trying to go for a change.
Right?
when we go through all of them.
And save
we'll be-
February 28th, because that's the MACC conference.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that explains a whole lot of the information if you take those classes.
Well, in the state regulations, but not your town bylaws.
Right.
No, right, exactly.
Right, so,
But you
in
have
our
to understand
case,
one to get the other.
we have an extensive set of bylaws that this board has to enforce, and there's a lot to understand. They're complex, they're complicated, and there's many pages.
Mhm.
So, I think it'll make us a better board, we'll vote more consistently when we all spend some time together to go and talk about rules and regulations.
And it did help the last time we did it, a few years ago, because we had discussion,
Mhm.
but now we have new people, so I don't think it's a bad idea at all.
Right,
Certain things we might breeze right through, and other things we'll have lengthy discussion on, probably. more than
Agreed.
likely.
yep.
I totally agree.
Yeah, we can start from page one, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, my next thing I wanna talk about is, somebody has to start checking the stuff going out of the office. The agendas have been screwed up, there's been wrong addresses, been wrong names, that we had to turn people away because the mailers didn't come back.
Wrong PDFs to emails, even stuff like that.
Yeah, it's tough. So I don't know how we go about doing that. Maybe if we could
Well,
start with
I-
somebody just double checking the agenda.
When Wanda sends it out, like the one that you caught yesterday, I caught too, she sent out by mistake 39 West Sutton instead of 39.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had the wrong attachment, which that wasn't the end of the world coming to us, because we caught it, and we could say wrong attachment, but it's bad if that goes to
Right.
an engineer or a town applicant or something.
Right.
And we all make mistakes, so it's,
Right.
So Nicole, you're gonna help bring us up into the year of 2019.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna
all your
ask-
wonderful skills, cause we all have different ones, I can maybe read plans and I could never do this task. If you asked me to help organize Wanda,
Right.
that would not work out well, it's not my thing.
So, I don't know if she has late hours, cause I obviously have a full-time.
She's here at 6 on Tuesdays.
I would be more than happy to stop by here on Tuesdays and take a look and just see if I can help her.
Cause just my opinion, if
Yeah.
there's mistakes consistently, it's the process of the note-taking that leads to making the documents that post and board. So, I know the older I get, the more I like to have help from people.
Right.
And you learn, and the more you stay open-minded, things just get better, that's success, you know? So, I think it was a great meeting tonight.
I
I
think
think
it was
we
a
all,
productive meeting.
like I said, even if we don't have newly created jobs, but newly created positions,
Mhm.
jobs usually find their way in the positions.
Mhm.
I think Nicole's got a little direction, and Joyce, you're just nothing changes for you.
Mhm.
You get to still be the person that does all the work.
Right.
And it's not unrecognized.
Yeah,
I
it's
know
not,
I'm very
no,
thankful
and
for it.
we
I've said it
appreciate
to you
everything you do.
Many,
It's
many
not-
times.
Yeah.
And I recognize it,
Mhm.
and I say thank you for it.
And I'm happy to do site visits when I'm in town, when.
Yeah.
We all are.
Yeah,
She
Yeah,
knows
Mike's-
she can call.
your
Mike's-
area.
Yeah.
Mike's been doing a
Well,
lot,
or
yeah.
if you've had doctors or certain things,
Mhm.
but,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you enjoy doing them and continue to do them,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
If
it's-
I didn't do it, my house would be cleaner, but anyway.
Ah, you like it. We all like it. I like to go once in a while,
I
see
can
what's
make
going
that
on. You
an
talk to
excuse for
townspeople.
him.
I don't know, it's not such a bad thing.
Yeah, no, and you know, realistically, it's good that people see us out
Yeah.
actually doing what we're
Well,
supposed to do.
this,
caring and-
this is what we did before, for the first 10 years I was on conservation, is every other Saturday usually, we went on site visits as a group.
That's what ZBA does, don't they?
Yeah.
Here and there, you know, if they, cause you have, to really understand a project, you have to go out on it.
You
Right.
have to see it.
You know,
Right.
like the bigger project that was down near the highway, and we had they had really good plans, it was very well presented. But if it wasn't, a site visit would have helped with somebody that's less of a presenter.
To me, you
Um,
understand plans, but
no,
I
that's what
have
I'm
to
trying to
see,
say.
I have to see it in person to recognize, and the scale and scope of things when you see it in person
So as we
is
have
much different than a
conversations
plan.
about the rules and regulations, and we find out the things it takes for us as a board to do a great job for the town, like I said, discussion at the end will be a great thing.
Do we wanna go back to doing site visits as a group? Or you work on Saturdays?
This is how ZBA did
Depends on the
it.
Saturday,
Why make that commitment to go to everyone?
yeah,
We have Brandon,
right.
which does take some of the burden off as us as volunteers. But there'll be projects where maybe we're not all understanding it, instead of just, we say, let's continue it, we'll do a site visit on a Saturday. I would do it as case needed. I think that's how we did it on other boards that I've been on, and it worked well.
Cutting a tree down.
'Cause there'll
we
be
probably don't
things
need to
that-
all visit.
May,
No.
and it may only be one member that just, and for that reason alone, we'll do a site, and not maybe all of us show up, but 2 or 3 of us, and if a couple of them got it or they went by on their own.
Well, that's what happened before, that we would go as a group, but we had a couple people that worked on Saturday and they went out on their own, so.
You'd have to post that as a meeting.
The nice thing of going as a
If
group, you,
there's,
More than 2.
if there's more than 2, right.
well, you post it, and that way, cause when you can go as a group, you can have a better discussion, so
Mhm.
say I
You
go.
can't have a discussion. You cannot have a
On his
discussion
property.
when,
Oh, off-site, yeah.
that's an ethics
No.
violation. You
Hold on,
cannot
hold on.
discuss it, you can go to it, you can see it, but you cannot discuss anything
So if,
at a site visit.
if we have a meeting.
No, you can't.
Even if,
It's an ethics violation if you discuss it,
oh, cause it's not recorded
because
for the
it's
public.
not in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Oh,
discuss it
yeah,
you're right,
following
yeah, yeah,
Wednesday
I got you.
meeting.
It's the public.
Okay, yeah.
Right, you
Although-
can discuss it at the following.
I got you.
Right,
Right.
as a group.
Yeah, okay.
But you can still
The only
understand, you
site
can ask
visit-
questions about the site and what's
You can
going
ask
on, that's what the
questions
site.
about the
So
site
that's
and
what
what
I
they're
meant by,
doing,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, let me explain it. So if I'm there and I understand all the plans and we're there together and we're there to understand what's going on, it's better as a group.
Mhm.
Cause that's what we would do at ZBA.
Mhm.
Not that we'd have a discussion of how we would vote, we would have discussions about the project itself.
Mhm.
That's what we were there for.
The only time I remember going on one as a whole group, when I first got on, was Lynn Dallion's property on the lake. And it was just to see it, we were all there one night after work.
Yeah.
And then I've done a couple, you know, 3 of us went
Yeah.
to, across from you, but,
Uh-oh, did you post it?
Most of what we do, if the plans are really done well, I mean,
Yeah, that was-
it's
that
not
was-
hard to understand it at the meeting,
That's-
but.
Well, that just brings up something else to me. When people come in and wanna ask questions, what happened in the past years ago and why there were so many hearings is people would come in and say, oh, do I have to file, can I do this, can I do that? And we were basically making the plans for them. So when Brandon got more involved, then he came up with different qualifications and that the plans needed to be in a week ahead of time and all of that. So we came up with kind of the mantra, good plans make good projects. And that cut down on the number of hearings. So when people come in and wanna ask this and that, if we have that sheet of when you should file and so forth, they should go to that instead of kind of take money out of our resources.
The only one that I can remember coming in preliminary and wanting to ask questions to feel us out was that big project between Armsby and
Armsby, yes.
146.
the new development, yeah.
Right.
And I had a discussion with them prior to that meeting to come in and ask very specific questions because they knew they were gonna file.
I agree to a point, but I think on a big project like that that's gonna benefit the town, I think we should give them a little bit of, you know, not to say that we can't do it with Joe Homeowner, but Joe Homeowner's project is very simple, yes or no. He was just trying to feel out what we were gonna allow for an entryway to that.
Which
But-
is nothing you can vote on or whatever prior to.
Right, but
I think what they try to accomplish, Joyce, is that they come and get a little feedback, then they come back with the plan once.
right, and
So
they don't have to
I
come
think
back
it's a
8
good
times.
thing, and I don't think it happens a lot, to Andy's point. when an applicant or a applicant that is going to be an applicant comes in front of us to ask some questions, it's to get the plan
You
in
know.
an order. Every town's different.
Right.
They all have different things, so sometimes, I don't see it to be excessive that,
That's why I asked for him to come in with very specific questions,
who,
Mr. Wadman, on that project.
which one?
What was that big, that?
The
55?
Armsby Road.
Oh, yeah.
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 Right, that, see, that's one we probably should have done. I know we did get the chance to go down to the river and I couldn't make it, but I wish I went to that site.
Yeah.
I understood it, but there was, you know,
Right.
we all know and hope it's gonna be a great project.
Yep. We hope that's.
That
all
would have
we
been a
do.
good one as a
Well, I
group.
do think a lot of the engineers are now coming in and understand that, you know, we want plans a week in advance, and they don't try to get around mitigation. You know, sometimes they'll ask for relief, but a lot of them spell it right out now.
Mhm.
I can think of a few cases where it's just all done, and some
This-
of these in not one meeting.
I was just gonna say, there's certain engineers that know exactly what
Oh,
we're
we're
looking
still
for.
on the board business. One other thing we should discuss. Just someone to reach out to Brandon and find out what it would take for him to catch up, cause I know he's taken pretty much 21 days to write a order of conditions. When I say catch up, we have a meeting first and third of every month.
Yeah.
We know the next day after every meeting, there's a few order of conditions that need to be done. So I would hope that our consultant can get to a point where it's not a full 21 days. I think that on bigger projects, or if he had a vacation and there was circumstances,
Oh, there's definitely
and there's times where he did need the 21 days, but I as a board member would like to hope that we could ask our consultant to get to a point where they come out a little bit more timely than they
I
are now.
do believe they were.
No,
Other than when he was away on vacation, and there were a couple times where he, you know, came in, it was middle of summer, crazy.
There's one
I-
currently that's past.
so there was 7 of them that just went to 21 days.
There was 7 that went to 21
Yeah.
days, okay,
Yes.
so
We
is
got
this
them
a
in this
newer
morning.
thing though?
21 days. No.
So
And I
he's-
think there's been other times prior to that. All that I'm asking is I think that we can do better. I know somebody that relies on that to keep my crews busy sometimes. 21 days is if there's a like some of these are not very hard to write the certificate of compliance. And I
Order
think
of
some of
conditions.
what.
Order of conditions.
Order of conditions. I think some of what Andy's saying is Wanda, I think some of it is a cover sheet. It's like secretarial work, not so much consultant work. Maybe the actual written order of conditions is the consultant work. Maybe with the right guidance, some of that could done in-house to help with the timelines. A lot of towns have a consultant that works at the
I
town.
believe it was being done in-house, and then Brandon started doing it all, but I may be
So,
wrong on that.
not today, not tomorrow, but
Mhm. Well, we
those
discussed
are
it,
things
yeah.
to discuss about. I don't
I
think that
agree.
anything happens fast that's done well.
Mhm.
These are things to work on.
Mhm.
That's all I'm bringing it up. It's board business, it's discussion.
You're talking about like the name of the applicant, the, you know,
Address,
where it's
the
recorded.
Well, if you
and
look at
that
a set
general
of,
stuff.
order
Yeah,
of
I've seen a million
conditions,
of 'em,
that
so-
they're very
Yeah,
boilerplate a
and
lot.
then Brandon would just fill out what the
The
actual
actual,
conditions
Yeah.
were.
correct.
The
I
special
think
conditions.
that's what he does.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what he does.
Wanda's doing them all, other than just Brandon writes the special
think-
conditions?
Yes, she.
Okay, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it Wanda that's behind this?
Yeah.
Why did it just take 21
Well,
days for
because
7
she
order of
had sent
conditions?
things to Brandon, and he's been very, very busy this
Okay.
summer, and so, he,
So, what I'm saying is, and this isn't directed at Brandon, if his company's growing, he needs to hire help, cause I don't, as a
he's
commission.
got a new guy with him.
I know, and I
Yeah.
hope he's training them, and that's part of growing, but our, like I said, if it's once in a while, that's fine, but if next month, again, it's.
We don't want it
full-
to turn into a habit, is what I'm saying.
Well, I just don't think it's good business.
Or if there's some way that we can
These are the
assist
things we
him.
can do to make this not of a process,
Yeah.
to make people wanna file and not know that it's gonna take 3 months before they can actually build their deck or cut a tree down, okay?
Right.
I just think we should be mindful for these
And
things.
that's been my argument all the time about being too restrictive on some of these things, is people just aren't gonna file, because it's.
As we have discussions, I
Yes.
think we can all offer great discussion to things.
All
Let's
right.
adjourn, huh? Good,
I will entertain a motion.
Is that a motion, Mike?
I made a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.